I'm Russ Mitchell. Mideast crisis. Rockets hit Israel and refugees crowd the Gaza border in the wake of the Palestinian power struggle. Race car chaos. An out-of-control drag racer kills 6 people in Tennessee and raises questions about the sport's safety. Swept away. What rising sea levels are doing to America's beaches. And cube crazy. Why a whole new generation is getting hooked on Rubik's Cube.
This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. It has been another day of high tensions in the Middle East after 2 rocket attacks this Sunday on northern Israel. According to Israeli officials, the rockets were fired from Lebanon by Palestinians, hoping to force the Israeli military to respond. Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, in the U.S., where he will meet with President Bush on Tuesday, called this a very disturbing day. We have 2 reports, beginning with Richard Roth in Tel Aviv.
Nerves were shattered, but no one was hurt. One rocket smashed into a street, the other sprayed a factory entrance with shrapnel. The instant fear was of a replay of last summer's rain of rocket fire on northern Israel and the inconclusive war with Hezbollah guerrillas in Lebanon. But Hezbollah denied responsibility for this attack, which may have come from a Palestinian splinter group. And Israel said it wouldn't respond to what it called a provocation. Even so, it certainly added to the tension here. Israel's been full of talk that there's a ticking time bomb on its southern border now, with Islamic militants in control in Gaza. With its armor on the edge of the Gaza Strip, Israel warned it's ready to move in if threatened, but right now it's just applying pressure, for instance at Gaza's gas pumps. They'll soon run dry. Israel's cutting off fuel supplies to Gaza for cars and cooking. That's also part of America's new Palestinian policy, to squeeze the radical Islamic group Hamas, isolated in Gaza since it took over by force, and to embrace the more moderate Palestinians aligned with Fatah, whose new government oversees just the West Bank. Some say it's a mistake.
This division, if it is maintained, will spell the end of the Palestinian national cause. We must try to reunite and at the same time help Gaza, despite the fact that Hamas has taken over.
At the border, there's a stream of people, not a flood, but there's a flight from fear in Gaza and plenty who are stuck and in need of help. This mother said she'd rather be shot for entering Israel than go back to her burned-out home in Gaza. Someone could have told her she's living history tonight, helpless, homeless, and Palestinian. Richard Roth, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
And the mounting turmoil in the Middle East gives even greater urgency to Israeli Prime Minister Olmert's visit to the U.S. Dan Raviv is in Washington tonight with the latest on that part of the story.
Claiming this crisis brings possible opportunities, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert arrived in New York for talks at the UN. But the real crunch comes Tuesday, talks at the White House with President Bush. Their current strategy? Give up on Gaza. Focus on the West Bank to strengthen Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The U.S. and Israel are working on ways to lift an embargo on financial aid to the West Bank, release tax revenues Israel is holding, and let Fatah security men have more weapons.
To try to do something on the West Bank that would improve the economy, that would ease restrictions on movement.
That's what Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice has been urging, but it's been a back burner issue, the arm twisting limited, yielding only small concessions by Israelis and Palestinians.
Instead of jumping in with both feet in response to a real opportunity, we dithered and remained on the sidelines.
U.S. officials hope that with Fatah's stinging defeat in Gaza and Israel worried about a victory by radicals, this could be a time for cooperation. America's credibility is on the line.
The Middle East is in flames in many respects today. Everywhere you look, there's deep trouble. Iraq, Lebanon, the Palestinians, the peace process, Iran. Every problem in the Middle East is linked to something else.
Sources tell CBS News the only hope for some silver lining from the Gaza storm cloud is to make the moderates a success in the West Bank. The U.S. and Israel leaving Gaza for now to be an angry, radical charity case. Russ?
Dan Raviv at the White House. Thank you very much. In a new video broadcast today by Al Jazeera, Palestinian militants in Gaza holding BBC reporter Alan Johnston threatened to kill him if their demands are not met. They denied reports of a deal to free Johnston, who was seized more than 3 months ago. In the battle for Iraq, the U.S. today confirmed the deaths of 3 American soldiers in explosions near their vehicles this weekend. That raises the overall U.S. death toll to 3,524. In Afghanistan, as many as 35 are dead after one of the deadliest insurgent attacks since the U.S.-led invasion 6 years ago. The target was an area at Kabul's most active transportation hub. And as Mark Phillips reports, it was just the latest in a busy year of anti-government attacks.
There wasn't much left of the bus, and there's not much left of the idea that the renewed Taliban insurgency is being contained in Afghanistan. This latest blast on a busy road in Kabul is the 5th major attack in 3 days, and one of the deadliest single bombings since the fall of the Taliban. The attack wasn't only deadly, it made several points that the Taliban attacks are becoming bolder, more frequent, and are spreading across the country. Officials of the internationally backed government of Hamid Karzai claim the increased violence isn't homegrown, but is coming from Iran.
In the Iranian question, that there is definitely recently evidences that there has been some weapons and other supplies coming from that side of the border.
More than 2,400 people have been killed so far this year in anti-government attacks, and the U.S. too is pointing its finger at the government in Tehran as the supplier of much of the deadly arsenal.
I think that it's the quantity that we're seeing makes it difficult to believe that the Iranian government doesn't have some indication or some knowledge of it.
The increase in violence, whatever its source, is putting growing pressure not just on the Afghan government, but on the U.S.-led coalition that supports it. Many here blame the bombings on the presence of foreign troops and say the killing will continue as long as what they see as the occupation goes on. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
In this country, what began as a fun day at a car show in Tennessee turned deadly after a driver lost control of a drag racing car and slammed into a crowd of spectators. 6 people were killed. It happened in the town of Selmer, that's about 80 miles east of Memphis. Bianca Solorzano has more.
Today, family and friends came to mourn. Skid marks, a scar on what was supposed to be a signature event at a children's charity car show. With crowds lined up and watching, a drag race car performed an exhibition burnout, where the driver spins his wheels, burning rubber and smoking his tires before taking off down the parade route. But only a few hundred feet down the road, the car fishtailed, hit a light pole, and spun into the crowd where there was no guardrail.
He was just going down through there, and it was like it was throwing people up like a deck of cards.
I'm just upset that this whole situation happened because even, I mean, there's no guardrails, and, you're 2 feet from the road that it happened on. So, it's aggravating that this even happening.
This crash happened at a similar burnout event 2 weeks ago in Carrollton, Ohio, where there was no guardrail either. As the exhibition starts, the black Camaro fishtails and swerves into a crowd. 7 people were injured.
After the fact, yeah, they were too close. But I would say that, from all indications, they should have been back a little bit farther than where they were.
These drag cars speed at more than 200 miles an hour. Critics say while organized races have strict safety regulations, many unsanctioned events like parades and demonstrations have little in place to keep crowds safe.
As far as the safety goes, from what I saw, there wasn't any. This was James Dean, driving off the edge of the cliff.
Drag racing experts add these kinds of demonstrations need to turn to organized race leagues to make their events safer, even if they simply start by moving the crowds back away from the action. Bianca Solorzano, CBS News, New York.
Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, what these tiny creatures have to do with a big rise in a painful disease. We have been hearing about Lyme disease for years, but last week, the Centers for Disease Control raised an alarm about the painful infection, saying the number of reported cases has jumped, and the real problem may be even worse. Randall Pinkston has more.
To look at Alita Lyons now and these old photographs, you can't tell that for 2 decades she suffered from Lyme disease.
How did Lyme disease affect your life?
It gave me this terrible insomnia.
Lyme disease is carried by these tiny deer ticks. It often goes undetected for years and can be difficult to diagnose.
I went to, I would say, over 20 doctors complaining about these symptoms, and nobody had a good diagnosis, and nobody tested me for Lyme disease until a doctor finally did in 2003.
And according to the Centers for Disease Control, Lyme disease is on the rise. From over 9,400 cases a year in 1991, the annual reported cases more than doubled to 23,000 by 2005.
Is it a matter of more Lyme disease being spread or more reporting?
Well, I think both are true, which is that the public is definitely much more knowledgeable about Lyme disease today than they were in 1991.
Lyme disease is a bacteria named for the Connecticut town where it was first discovered 3 decades ago. But it spread far from there by the ticks which are carried by deer, mice, and even birds. Lyme disease is concentrated in 10 states, mostly in the Northeast and around the Great Lakes. Typically, the first symptom is a red bullseye rash, but sometimes there are no apparent symptoms. If it's not treated early, it can progress into a debilitating condition, as it did with Alita Lyons, until she got heavy doses of antibiotics.
And then we switched around antibiotics and found one that's really starting to make me feel much better.
While public awareness is up, the CDC believes Lyme disease is still underreported by 200,000 cases a year. Experts say the federal government should contribute $100 million in research funds to find a cure. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, New York.
Atlantis astronauts took their 4th and final spacewalk today. They worked on a rotary joint that allows a new solar panel for the space station to track the sun. The shuttle is scheduled to undock from the station on Tuesday. And just ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the sands of time. Why a day at the beach may no longer be a day at the beach. Here's a warning. When you go to your favorite beach this summer, you may find it has shrunk. This month, a UN report found sea levels have been rising by a few millimeters every year, impacting coastal communities around the world. Now, some vacation spots are taking action to protect their beaches, as we hear from Michelle Miller.
From Florida to New England, the Gulf Coast to California, America's beaches are literally losing ground.
Coastal erosion is a major problem in the United States.
Graham Gies has studied beach and coastal erosion all over the world. He says the major threats are stronger storms and rising sea levels, plus the huge growth in beachfront development.
As the coasts erode, the structures are threatened and in some cases eroded into the sea.
Beaches are a buffer between the land and the sea. They normally replenish themselves from sand dunes, but building on these means the beach has nowhere to get sand naturally. And that means a lot of people are at risk. A recent study shows 23 million people living along 91,000 square miles of the nation's coastline are vulnerable to flooding, storm surges, and intense hurricanes associated with climate change. What exactly are these?
These are called geotubes.
In New Jersey's Ocean City, engineer George Savastana knows the threat is all too real. He's had to install huge sand-filled tubes which create artificial sand dunes to protect the multi-million-dollar homes just yards away. Just how bad had the beach been eroded?
This beach, if you can imagine where we're standing, after we initially replenished it, was about 250 feet out.
Beach preservation is both costly and constant. Ocean City spends up to $10 million every 3 years. Other places like Miami Beach fear a direct hit from a hurricane this year will wipe their beach out. They're looking to get replacement sand from the Bahamas because they can't find enough in the United States. Potential losses are huge, not just million-dollar homes, but hotels and apartment buildings. Now they're facing a new threat. The federal government promised millions to help maintain the nation's beaches. That money has now been cut off, a fact that makes no sense at all to those who run seaside communities.
If the properties aren't protected and they're lost during the storm, then the federal government comes in through the federal insurance programs and pays.
It's not just New Jersey and Florida at risk. On Cape Cod, where scientists constantly monitor beach erosion, researchers believe it's only a matter of time before shoreline homes vanish into the sea.
You can kind of pace it off from the corner of your house to the edge of the cliff, and the number of footsteps could almost equal the number of years you have before the cliff will reach you.
And the problem is getting worse. In the next 2 decades, the rate of beach erosion is expected to double or triple. Michelle Miller, CBS News, Ocean City, New Jersey.
Coming up on tonight's CBS Evening News, how long would it take you to solve this puzzle? Meet the kids who can do it in seconds. We want to say happy birthday to the Frisbee. The iconic disc got its name 50 years ago today. In the meantime, I should say, another legendary plaything is in the spotlight today in Chicago. It's something called the Rubik's Cube National Open. Joey Chen has more on this puzzling addiction that's being embraced by a whole new generation.
Face it, the contest at this North Atlanta high school is just humiliating. These kids flip and spin and click the cubes into place. It takes them seconds. And you can't solve this thing in 10 hours. Well, I couldn't anyway, even with a lot of expert help.
Take all your white petals and move it around the yellow side.
Okay, well, that should be doable. Or maybe not.
We want to bring this one back, right?
What? I'm totally lost. In this Back to the Future moment, I'm once again the class idiot. I didn't even realize how hot the cube had gotten. Hasbro says it's seen double-digit sales growth, thanks in part to Will Smith's The Pursuit of Happiness. And by the way, that's not a stunt double. Will learned how from one of Joy Wang's best friends.
Good job.
She'll tell you the secret. Just learn the algorithms, whatever they are.
No, it's just seeing different patterns and using an algorithm, which is a set of moves to put it back.
I was never any good at math.
No math required.
She didn't mention that she got a perfect score on her math SATs and hangs out with other brainiacs like Grace Greenwood. So what's your time?
Oh, I'm not as fast as some of the kids here. There was a kid who solved it in 11 seconds.
1, 2. That's Andrew Kang, a.k.a. the Beast. 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, 1069. Ooh. That's good.
Yeah.
He held a new world record for a couple weeks.
And I just locked myself in my room 2 to 4 hours a day practicing.
2 to 4 hours a day?
Yeah.
Do your parents know about this?
Yeah.
And then there's Chris Hardwick. The 3x3 is just too easy for him. He does the 4x4 and 5x5 cubes blindfolded. Really, blindfolded in 20 minutes. Everyone asks, how?
I tell myself a story in a particular journey through my neighborhood where I grew up. So it's a way to file the information away.
So this is what becomes of a UNC honors graduate in mathematics. Chris works at Starbucks now, but hopes to make his fortune on the international cubing circuit. Me? I'm going to stick with my day job. So I need more reds over here.
Yes.
I'm not doing very well at this, am I?
No.
Well, I'm as good as she is. For now, anyway. Joey Chen, CBS News, Alpharetta, Georgia.
And we'll be back. And finally tonight, call it Hairport. Flights into and out of Milan Airport in Italy were suspended for 3 hours today because of hares overrunning the runways. By day's end, rescuers had rounded up at least 57 hares and 4 of what you could call wascally wabbits. And that's the CBS Evening News. Later on CBS, 60 Minutes and a controversial memory pill. I'm Russ Mitchell, CBS News in New York. I'll see you again first thing tomorrow on The Early Show. Happy Father's Day. Good night.
CBS News. See it now, anytime, anywhere.